every polarizing post, every jab at a beloved classic. It's like she's been sowing the seeds of her own downfall, one interview at a time.
Come in, team, we're doing it again! The voice echoes, full of energy and laughter. The group moves with a kind of chaotic excitement, tossing around inside jokes. Later, skater! After a while, crocodile, one of them calls out, the room bursting into giggles. We'll see you at the Oscars, another adds, almost as a tease. Wait, that's tonight, right? Yeah, that's actually where we're going. You and me heading straight to the A-list. The moment feels light, genuine, a snapshot of young stars caught between success and self-awareness. When asked about their favorite movie of the year, aside from their own project, there's a pause. Josh, what's one movie we saw this year that we loved? After a thoughtful silence, he replies, Licorice Pizza. They both nod. A simple answer, yet behind that easy exchange, something feels tense, as though a storm is quietly brewing behind the smiles. Rumors soon begin to swirl across social media and entertainment blogs. Rachel Zegler and Andrés Rivera have allegedly broken up. And while celebrity splits are an everyday headline in Hollywood, this one hits differently. It's not a quiet drifting apart or a polite press release about mutual respect. It feels like a public implosion, a relationship crushed under the unbearable weight of fame, relentless criticism, and the suffocating echo chamber of the internet. As the Snow White controversy continues to spiral, Rachel's image takes a massive hit. Commentators and YouTube critics pile on, accusing her of arrogance, entitlement, and hypocrisy. No one can stand the star of this movie, one pundit declares bluntly. Much of the criticism centers on her outspoken views about the film, particularly her comments about the outdated nature of the original love story, where the prince's behavior borders on obsession. It's weird, she said once, but the internet seized on that word like a weapon. Suddenly, every clip, every quote, every interview was dissected and ridiculed. Online voices grew louder. She has to go, some said. I'm sorry, Disney, but she has to go. The sentiment snowballed, turning from criticism into a full-blown campaign of hostility. On social media, people drew battle lines, fans defending her bravery on one side, critics accusing her of destroying a beloved classic on the other. Ziegler, trying to hold her ground, fired back. If you disagree with me, unfollow. I don't need your business. But what might have felt empowering in the moment only deepened the public divide. Suddenly, people weren't just mad about her opinions, they were mad about her tone, her confidence, her refusal to back down. Commentators labeled her entitled, saying she'd forgotten her place in a billion-dollar studio machine. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it, one critic ranted. You're just an actor. Do your job and stop lecturing everyone. But behind the camera, the situation wasn't so black and white. Rachel had spoken openly about the pressure she was under, saying, I can be having the greatest time and still wish people would stop sending me death threats. Her words revealed a glimpse of the darker side of fame. The anxiety, the exhaustion, the feeling of being hunted online by people who didn't really know her. Still, sympathy was rare. To her critics, she wasn't a victim of hate. She was the cause of it. As the backlash grew, boycotts began trending. Commentators urged parents to skip the movie, no matter how much their children loved Snow White. Even co-star Gal Gadot, known for her calm professionalism, couldn't escape the shadow of controversy. Every new teaser, every leaked quote reignited the flames. Zegler's own words about her working conditions added fuel to the fire. In one interview, she joked, or perhaps complained, that she deserved to be paid for every hour the movie was streamed online. To fans already questioning her attitude, that comment felt tone-deaf, even greedy. Through it all, Andrés Rivera tried to remain by her side. According to people close to the couple, he had been her anchor, the calm in the storm. He defended her, tuned out the noise, and tried to focus on their relationship instead of the headlines. When you're sitting next to someone you're proud of, someone who's proud of you, everything just makes sense, he once said. But even love has limits. As the media chaos intensified, what began as patient support slowly turned into exhaustion. The pressure, the criticism, the constant barrage of negativity, it wore him down. What had once been a promising partnership between two rising stars became a casualty of the spotlight. The laughter from those early interviews now feels like an echo from another lifetime, a reminder of what fame can give and what it can take away. None of it stayed outside the relationship. Every ounce of pressure, every headline, every viral clip, it all seeped in. And when it did, it broke them. Insiders paint a bleak picture of Rachel's emotional state in the weeks following Snow White's premiere. Publicly, she projected defiance, posting, responding, defending herself, trying to hold her ground as if sheer willpower could silence the noise. But behind the scenes, those closest to her say she was unraveling. She was constantly on her phone, scrolling endlessly through mentions, reacting to every jab and insult online, diving into every thread where her name appeared. What started as damage control became obsession. Friends described her as spiraling, fragile, and exhausted. One confidant later admitted, "She was on edge all the time. Even the smallest criticism could send her reeling." Josh, once her calm in the chaos, the balance to her fire, allegedly began to pull away. The patience faded. The presence disappeared. And eventually, so did he. It's not hard to see why. Rachel had become the internet's main character, the center of a digital storm that no one could fully escape. During press interviews, Rachel tried to explain her modern take on Snow White. It's no longer 1937. She's not going to be saved by the prince. She's not dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. On paper, it sounded empowering. In practice, it became fuel for backlash. It started innocently. A few clips from the press tour, meant to promote the film, began circulating on TikTok and Twitter. But instead of spreading excitement, they spread discomfort. The tone was off. The confidence that should have read as bold came across as smug. The sincerity that fans expected from a Disney heroine felt replaced by arrogance. Then came that infamous moment. The interview where she smirked into the camera and said, "I deserve to be paid every time my movie is streamed. I stood there 18 hours a day in that dress, as an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour it's online. I deserve to be paid for every hour it's online." It wasn't just the words. It was the delivery, the smirk, the dismissive tone, the air of superiority. Instead of embodying Snow White's warmth and innocence, she came off like her opposite, sharp, defensive, unrelatable. What was meant to sound like empowerment ended up sounding entitled. Overnight, Rachel Zegler became the face of Hollywood arrogance, the poster child for everything people were growing tired of in celebrity culture. And then the optics made it worse. Every time she appeared next to Gal Gadot, the tension was unmistakable. What should have been a charming partnership, the sweet princess and the regal villain, instead looked painfully awkward. Photos from red carpets showed forced smiles, eyes looking in opposite directions, and the kind of body language that screamed discomfort. Fans online joked that the two looked less like co-stars and more like co-workers forced into HR mediation. The moment that cemented it came at the Oscars. "Please welcome Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot," the host announced. The two stepped onto the stage to present Best Visual Effects. Rachel smiled brightly, almost overcompensating, while Gal stood beside her, composed but distant. "Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen," Rachel began. "Their work makes the impossible seem possible," Gal continued smoothly. But even through the glamour, fans noticed the chill. It wasn't about words, it was body language. The stiffness, the lack of warmth, it was clear as day. For viewers watching at home, it felt like Gal Gadot wanted nothing to do with Rachel's growing PR nightmare. But the real downfall didn't come from awkward interviews or icy red carpet photos. It came from the film itself. When Snow White finally hit theaters, the response was brutal. Critics called it soulless, confused, and heavy-handed. Audiences stayed away. Online, the conversation was merciless. Who's surprised? One comment read, "You cast arguably the least genuine, most disliked person in Hollywood, and made her the symbol of empowerment." From the start, Rachel had pitched the movie as a feminist reimagining, a prince-free, dwarf-free version about independence and leadership. In theory, it sounded fresh and bold. But in execution, it alienated everyone. Fans of the classic who saw it as disrespectful, and modern audiences who found it hollow. What was meant to be a triumphant reinvention of a timeless fairy tale ended up being a cautionary tale about how fast Hollywood can turn on its own, and how quickly public perception can destroy even the brightest rising stars. The idea was empowering, but the execution, not so much. In this reimagined version of Snow White, the heroine doesn't earn her name from the fairness of her skin, as in the 1937 classic. Instead, she's named after surviving a snowstorm, a symbolic choice meant to reflect inner strength rather than outward beauty. Rachel Zegler passionately explained this during the press tour, saying that audiences would walk away understanding the true meaning of fairness. not about appearance, but about the heart, about how you treat people. Her words were meant to sound inspiring, modern, forward-thinking. But to many, it felt like over-explanation, like a moral lecture replacing the magic. The sincerity was there, but the delivery felt strained. Gone was the whimsy, the sense of wonder that defined Disney's golden age. In its place was a self-serious attempt at rebranding, one that stripped away the nostalgia and warmth that made Snow White timeless. Even die-hard Disney fans, the ones who usually defend remakes no matter how controversial, couldn't bring themselves to embrace it. "This just isn't Snow White," many wrote. It wasn't just that the film took creative liberties, it was that it seemed embarrassed by its own source material. The original story was treated less like a foundation and more like a problem to correct. Rachel, however, doubled down. She insisted that this was a bold new chapter in storytelling, that it was time for a different kind of princess. But audiences weren't buying it. They didn't want a lecture about empowerment from a movie that was supposed to be enchanting. They didn't want their childhood nostalgia rewritten by someone who openly mocked the original as creepy and weird. In that widening gap between what Rachel thought audiences wanted and what they actually wanted, everything began to crumble. As the backlash mounted, Disney itself started to retreat. Reports surfaced that the studio was scaling back the film's Hollywood premiere. Why? One anchor asked during a morning news segment. The answer was blunt. Because Rachel Zegler has become a PR nightmare. It was a stunning reversal. Once seen as a rising star, charming, talented, destined for longevity, Rachel had now become the center of a cultural storm. Her image, her relationship, even her standing within the industry had begun to fracture. The fairy tale that was supposed to catapult her career had become a cautionary tale about what happens when self-assurance slips into arrogance. Her Snow White press tour didn't just stumble, it detonated. What should have been a graceful charm offensive turned into a string of tense interviews, viral sound bites, and moments that painted her in the worst possible light. Instead of connecting with audiences, Rachel came across as condescending. More lecturer than actress, more TED Talk than Disney magic. She mocked the original film, called the prince a stalker, dismissed the romance as outdated, and questioned why Snow White ever needed saving. Her tone was sarcastic, her delivery sharp, and her body language defensive. To longtime fans, it didn't feel like confidence, it felt like contempt. And in the process, she didn't just insult the movie, she alienated the people who loved it. Gen Z rolled their eyes, millennials tuned out, boomers turned away completely. In a matter of weeks, Rachel managed to lose nearly every demographic, a rare and disastrous feat in modern Hollywood. Then came the numbers. Opening weekend, $45 million, a whisper by Disney standards. Snow White, one of the studio's most iconic titles, instantly collapsed under the weight of its own controversy. Audiences didn't just skip the film, they celebrated its failure. Social media lit up with memes, mockery, and comparisons to cinematic disasters like Cats and Morbius. The Rotten Tomatoes score plunged. IMDb users rated it a humiliating 1.6, one of the lowest in the site's history. Theaters began quietly dropping it from premium time slots, replacing it with anything that could draw more foot traffic. Even old animated reruns were outperforming Disney's live-action tentpole. It was a humiliation unlike anything the studio had seen in years. But the internet didn't mourn the flop. It celebrated it. The fall of Snow White became a kind of cultural victory lap. A moment where audiences, for once, felt like they'd push back against Hollywood's tone-deaf messaging. The same public that had once cheered Rachel Zegler's rise now reveled in her downfall. What had begun as a story about reimagining a fairy tale ended as a lesson in hubris, about how good intentions, unchecked confidence, and poor communication can turn even the brightest promise into a public spectacle.